Hi, and welcome to another edition of Better Minneapolis. Today I'm here with Michael Rainville, council member for Ward 3. Hello.
Hello, how you doing?
So, thank you for coming in. It's so hot. It's, I think, 97 outside?
97 on my thermostat in my car.
Yeah. That's something I don't think the city council can fix, right? Or the smoke. But you have had a busy week. You had a council meeting yesterday that was pretty eventful, and they all seem to be. I was thinking to myself, like, it just seems like every other week there's something. And
Right.
there's never like a boring week or council where there's like nothing being kind of where people show up and talk about and stuff. Does it seem that way to you or not?
Well, I've had an exciting job since I was first elected in 21, and now with some very inexperienced leadership running the council and running the committees, it's, I wouldn't say exciting. It's just we're spinning our wheels a lot, and that's obvious, I think, to everybody.
Well, one thing I have noticed is that an ordinance will be brought forward, but then there's an amendment and then subsequent amendments, and then there's a lot of back and forth
Right.
with Casey Carl
Yeah.
and the legal team to figure out what we're voting on, and then sometimes the voting stops because people aren't quite sure, and that seems, I don't know if that's normal, but it certainly seems like
Well,
there's
it's not normal.
Okay.
It's not normal, and it speaks to the inexperience and the lack of following the decorum and the rules of the council. So we have notice of intent to introduce an ordinance. Staff will do some work. Sometimes there's a legislative directive where staff does work, but then we have the committee system where there's a hearing at the committee level, and not only do the council members that are on the committee not follow everything, the other ones don't follow at all.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking in general. There are some really good council members, but for the most part, this confusion is caused because people aren't doing their homework. And then you get to the committee of the whole, and that should be the kind of the final say. If things aren't worked out, then there's a whole day and a half to make it work. But they keep adding things and going back and forth. It's very chaotic, and it puts an incredible stress on the city staff, whether it's the clerks or the attorneys or just our reg services, police, fire. It's not a good way to run a city.
Well, it does seem like sometimes you're getting amendments or changes like the day of. Like they're handing it out at the meeting, and that's like the first you're hearing about it.
Right. So I'm not on the A list, right? They talk amongst themselves. We don't talk amongst the whole council. So the progressive wing keeps things until maybe sometimes I get things at 10:30, 11 at night. So I'll get up in the morning and look at my email. Like, oh, I got this last night, but it's for that council meeting then. Or even sometimes I'll get it at 8:39 in the morning for a 9:30 meeting when you're trying to brush your teeth and talk to your wife.
Yeah.
And then there's the whole on-the-fly stuff that happened yesterday. We actually had to get off the topic and let our attorneys and clerk staff micromanage some wording.
Right. That was for Lyndale Avenue. So why don't we start there?
Sure.
It's kind of shocking how long it's taking. So it's owned by Hennepin County, the Lyndale Avenue. They said they've been doing kind of feedback sessions for 5 years. I forget how many comments. They said they've received something over like 50,000, which seems like an amazing amount. And where they landed after several iterations is a design that has made some people happy, some people very unhappy, particularly business owners. How would you describe how that process went? Did the county handle it right? Did the city council get that one right? Or what's your take on it?
Well, we could talk about this a long time. So my experience with the county road redo, and we got to redo our roads. That's what happens. They wear out, especially in Minnesota with the ice and snow. but my experience goes to East Hennepin Avenue. That outreach started during COVID. So it was a lot of Zoom meetings and, you know, who knows how the notifications went out, you know, how do you do that? But then when COVID was over, there was a great reluctance by the county staff to re-engage in person. And at that point I was elected, and it was very difficult because the county thinks of engagement different than the city. You know, our public works staff is really, really good about engagement, as well as the fire and police. And it's good, just very different than the county. And, you know, so I did not pay a lot of attention to Lyndale. I just followed the headlines. But there was a compromise that the business community could live with and the staff put forward, and then that got blown up by the bike advocates.
Yeah.
And it's just too bad because incredible hard feelings. There were meetings where the bike advocates booed the business owners, wished that they would fail. They didn't care what happened to them. Just really rude manners. And I don't know if it's an age thing, if because you're 25 you can be rude to someone that's older, or because, you know, someone owns a business trying to make that makes them a vulnerable or a target. But just some real bad manners going on. And now the business community feels like they haven't been listened to, and they're the ones with the money on the line.
Yeah.
Not someone riding a bicycle.
Well, and so I was at that meeting where that happened, and I think one of the commenters.
So tell me, did I get it right or wrong?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it was, you know, it was something around the fact of like, well, you know, if this happens, my business is going to fail. And people were like, good, you know, and there were.
What a horrible thing to say.
They showed up with their signs, and there was a lot of them. And they were ready for a fight, right? They weren't there to listen. But one of the owners said, and I think this is a good distinction, is that these are not, you know, Amazon. It's not these gigantic businesses that we're talking about. I mean, and I feel like there's no distinction in a lot of the resistance as to the size of the business, right? Like a lot of these businesses are just one person owns a jewelry store or a hardware store or the auto repair place. I mean, we're not talking about these huge conglomerates they're.
If I can interrupt, because I used to bring my son there. There's an agate shop, fossil shop on Lyndale, and it's like how unique and how special. And she laid her heart out. You know, she had gotten the store from her father, and this is going to hurt her. If anyone would know how these very one-sided changes are being proposed or are going to be designed, it would be her.
Right.
But she got booed.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like it's going to do much good for the city, that kind of attitude.
No, you know, the way I look at this whole new style of road redesign is the goal is noble, which is to have walkable communities and make it safer. You know, who can argue with that? But if these small businesses fail, there's going to be nowhere to walk to.
Yeah.
And then when they fail, the price of the buildings go down. The big multinationals will scoop them up, and they'll have a lock on the neighborhoods. So it's and I hope I'm wrong. I hope in 5 years ago, Rainville, you were really wrong about Lyndale Avenue and this whole road redesign.
Well, and it might be 5 years, you know, like, but if you own the business now, getting to 5 years down the road, you're not, no.
You can't. So think about it. The county is tripping over themselves to offer help on the potential blue line for the business community because they're going to be impacted with the construction. But they say, you know, bupkis about Lyndale Avenue or East Hennepin. East Hennepin got crushed.
What's the, Councilmember Wonesley has brought up several times that a pilot of $900,000 was set aside for businesses on Hennepin, and she blames the mayor for that money not being released.
Right.
What actually happened there? Is that
sure?
Is she portraying this accurately?
Well, half.
Okay.
So, and I was added myself to that and did an amendment to the amendment. It was a budget amendment. So, you know, your viewers have to understand the city budget. We've been undergoing talks with the mayor as individuals. He's still talking to all his departments. On August 12th, he'll release his budget.
Okay.
Then we go through a whole other, all 22 departments appear before us. They justify what their spending level will be. And then we have public hearings to hear from the public. Of course, everybody wants free stuff, right? That's what the world's about. Their cause is more noble than anybody else's. Mm-hmm. And then we make budget amendments. So, and vote on the final budget. So it was Walmsley and Chowdhury, because Hennepin was getting hammered. And I asked about East Hennepin. So I got some money in there for East Hennepin too. But what has happened to the overall city budget, which the mayor is ultimately responsible for, not the city council. We should be, but it's not happening because we're overspending as a city. We are in a budget crisis. The mayor saw that coming. He's been reining in. I've lost budget amendment dollars. I wanted a night business license inspectors. Why? Because we had them before COVID. And when you don't go into these restaurants, bars, nightclubs, where there's shootings and underage people and drugs get in there and guns, if you can't hold them to task, the violence goes on and on and on. And I had 2 positions funded, but you know what? I'm not getting them. Mm-hmm. It's a good thing. It should be done, but we can no longer keep raising property taxes. So every renter, every homeowner, every small commercial building owner is paying the price for our overspending. Mm-hmm. And especially the low income and the fixed income residents of our city. We're forcing them out, or we're forcing them into poverty because of the high rents and the high property taxes. So she's right. It was approved by the city, but ultimately the mayor has to look at it. So we've overspent our reserves. Our bond rating is going to be in question, which would make it more expensive to borrow money. So the mayor's making tough decisions, and you haven't seen anything yet. Wait till his budget comes out.
Well, I mean, even last year I was writing about when are there going to be spending cuts? And, there's a lot of talk about, where do we get more revenue? Where do we get more revenue? And, there's going to be possibly some other proposals out there, but I feel like there's got to be a little bit more emphasis on how do we rein in spending before we start asking for more money.
Right.
And that part of it doesn't seem to be in the conversation. It's interesting because I'm going out to Seattle tomorrow, and they're facing, I think, $175 million budget deficit.
That's real money.
And the mayor is going to every single department and saying, you need to come tell me how you're going to cut 10% or whatever. I mean, they've got that. So I guess this budget will be interesting to hear about, because I don't think a lot of people want to get to that point, right, where every department has to essentially bring forward.
Nobody wants to get to that point, zero. Yeah. But the truth, we have to operate on truth, not in a perfect world or a fantasy world. We have to operate in the real world. And in the real world, cities are on a cycle. Sometimes they're short year cycle, sometimes they're long cycle. We're on a long cycle of our property taxes having more and more and more because of the apartment buildings and the skyscraper buildings were full. Mm-hmm. And the money was there, so we hired more staff, we bought more equipment, we funded more social programs, like giving businesses money who had businesses on county roads. Even though the county was responsible, we wanted to do that, and that's a good thing. It shows mm-hmm. our big hearts here. But you have to also understand that there's only so much money, mm-hmm. and we are in a budget crisis. We are.
So, is it fair to say the county, which has a bigger budget than the city, mm-hmm. should be coming forward and doing more for those businesses along Lyndale?
It's more than fair to say that, because they're offering that on they learned their lesson when they put the green line through the Midway, collapsed that business community. They're kind of coming back now. And they're doing that for the Blue Line extension, especially along West Broadway, but also out in those north suburbs. So why not do it in the inner city? You know, what's the disconnect? Well, you know, why are the county commissioners not reading the tea leaves?
Well, certainly transportation projects, uh, you know, every single one of them becomes so controversial, right? I mean, I think people, it seems like it's just the tip of the iceberg to like different philosophies about the world, if you will. I don't know. But I wanted to go back to another thing that came up and was a big topic of conversation yesterday was the drones.
Drones.
And
This is really current affairs here, isn't it?
well, yeah, I mean, I guess it felt to me like it came on quickly because it's like it was an issue I hadn't even really heard about, and then there was a public hearing on it where 40 some odd people, I guess, came and testified against it, and then all of a sudden it was being voted on. But they said that Latricia Vito had been working on it for 2.5 years, but. I mean, I say all that by way of like, it was on the agenda yesterday and I felt unprepared, I guess, for the vote. But I'm not surprised, I guess, at how it went given the politics of the council. But maybe you could fill people in on what you thought was the benefits of it. I know one of the things you said is you thought that could have possibly prevented the killing of Officer Mitchell. But what are the pros and cons of this pilot in your mind?
So, yeah, I did say that had a drone program been in effect, because that call went in, the drug dealer killed someone in an apartment building down on Blaisdell, went outside, shot up a couple other people, was going down the street shooting people, shooting his gun, and some brave citizens who we'll never know the name of because they want to be anonymous, obviously, ran that person over. So he was laying in Blaisdell and had tucked his gun in. And if there would have been a drone out there, they would have saw what happened and that he was the shooter. So Officer Mitchell shows up. Nobody knows that there was a gun because Mitchell just got on the scene. And that person who I think he went beyond bad manners, shot Mitchell 3 times and shot one of our firefighters because a fire truck had pulled up too. So there's a hero that I hope to honor a little bit later in the year. We never really got the recognition for being shot. But that's a good example. The other thing I find fascinating, because the mayor had came on the dais, which doesn't happen, and he said this is just the future of non-armed public safety. We don't want to have our police have interactions like things like traffic stops. So we have technology for red lights and traffic cameras, and it's working really good. And that was very controversial, and the state put some rigid guidelines. We're obeying those, but we're seeing reductions in accidents and pedestrians being hit because of the technology. It's this drone as first responders is being used in New York City, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Phoenix, Denver, San Francisco, big liberal cities, but they understand that this is not only more efficient, it saves both pedestrian lives as well as the lives of first responders. So it, to me, is a good thing. But if you remember in the 21 election, there was a defund the police ballot on the vote, and the citizens said, no, we want police. We want them better than they are. The murder of George Floyd was terrible. Should never happened. But police are part of our social fabric. And since that time, we've been spending money on non-armed public safety. So you think of the violence interrupters, the traffic cameras, BCR, Behavioral Crisis Response. Great program. I call it all the time. People in crisis, they should not have a uniformed police officer come up. It sets them off. We send the social workers in. It just works really, really well. Now, at times, the social worker has to call the police because people who are addicted and have mental health issues sometimes become violent to the social workers. But we're evolving, and part of this evolution, this use of technology for public safety, is drones. And other cities are doing really successfully. And to go back to the traffic cameras, Terry, the state put all these guidelines on traffic cameras. They did the same thing for drones. Used successfully in St. Paul, Duluth. You know, we go to St. Paul and ask them for advice and help on some of the great programs they do. Non-fatal police shootings, not police shootings, non-fatal shootings, where the police have their own investigative team, and they're reducing overall shootings.
So let me ask, by the way, because I was curious about when you say that these drone programs have been successful in other cities, how is that being gauged? Like, what does it mean? Like, there's less shootings.
It means a faster response time.
Okay.
So when the citizen calls, the way this works, the operator gets the need for a call, and the drone is automatically dispatched off the roof of a fire station, what we are going to do in North Minneapolis. In St. Paul, they do them off the 3 district police precincts they have. And so we can tell right away, does that young man on the corner with a gun have a gun in his hand, or is it a camera? Is it a phone?
So how is what was going to happen, and maybe you don't know this, but how is it different than what the police are doing right now? Because they have drones already.
Sure. It's very different, very different. The police drone usage right now, and they've used it 600 and some times in the last couple of years with no complaints. That is in response to certain actions, to the need-based. This is 911 response.
Mm-hmm.
When someone calls in, they need a police officer or a fireman or a medical, the drone is dispatched automatically and can get there typically within 60 seconds. A police officer might take 7 minutes.
Could the city do this work without Skydio? I mean, if they have the drones, they have the operators. I mean,
yeah, there are other companies. I got to drink some water here. I'm getting thirsty. That appears to be the path forward.
Yeah.
Now, they are the best and the biggest, and they were going to do this small pilot project for 75 days at no cost to basically prove that this technology works. We would have been able to analyze the data, what's good, what's bad, what's the next steps. Mm-hmm. And it's really heart-wrenching to me that the 2 council members in North Minneapolis were not listened to on this. They were, and the people that came to not only testify, but at the council meeting yesterday were very, very rude again, bad manners, just no place in our city, mm-hmm. or any city making a law. To misbehave and catcall and hand gestures, no class.
So what you mentioned the future. Do you think this comes back but with a different company, or is this done for the year and maybe they take it up next year? What do you think happens now?
Well, I actually have yet to follow up. I do have the name of a person in Minnetonka Police Department to go out and just see for it myself. They've had great success out there. And I don't think this issue is going to go away because, again, New York, Philadelphia, mm-hmm. Atlanta, Denver, San Francisco, Phoenix, it's working. It's part of the future. And we should be operating our government out of facts.
Yeah. It seemed to me, listening to the debate, that it wasn't so much it didn't seem like there was disagreement over the technology or what benefits the technology could have. It was more about, we don't trust the police, we don't trust this company.
Right. We don't trust the federal government. I mean, everything gets dragged in,
Yeah.
What ICE did here in Minneapolis was terrible, but it has nothing to do with the drone pilot project to see if it can help our local public safety.
Yeah.
And that's part of the frustration of this council. They pull everything all at once out. They don't stick to the subject being debated. They justify their votes not based on the facts in front of them, but on things that happened in the past or could happen. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, I say this all the time. I get in trouble for saying it, but we're not governing on facts. We're governing on fear.
Yeah. Let's talk about an issue that I think shocked a lot of people that Pearl Warren brought up, and that's Heritage Park.
Oh, yeah.
I watched the I don't know if you want to call it, not a trial, but the discussion about that, where Eric Hansen and Enrique Velasquez tried to explain the situation to the city council. What do you think happened there? Because
Yeah.
it really seemed like, and I was reading more about this, that we have different city departments kind of blaming other departments, and the whole thing really fell through the cracks. The developer completely neglected its duties and has now walked away from things, and the city is sort of holding the bag. I mean, that's maybe an oversimplification, but what do you think happened there, and what happens after we get through this emergency of moving
Right.
these 600 some odd people?
Right, which is terrible, right? And in fact, Pearl, I'm an ally, and she's great. She's gonna be a good council member. You can see her getting seasoned more and more. In fact, this crisis is really seasoning her, and she's really got a handle on this. Kind of what's coming out on this is people were complaining, but the last council member just wasn't of interest to him.
Yeah.
And the Minneapolis Public Housing Authority, who owns the land and was involved and has their tenants in many of those units with their vouchers, kind of weren't interested either. And then the company that owned it, this for-profit Barron McCormick, they definitely weren't interested. In fact, if you think about it, there's been a lot of storms through that area, high winds, tornadoes. And when I would drive by and look at that, because I wanted to know I've noticed for years boarded up units, I thought they just built these. And then I started noticing, the holes in the roofs and the siding, and I thought, I bet you when the storms roll through, including a tornado, that they weren't fixed. So I'm starting to wonder why was the upkeep not happening? So, and that company now is bankrupt, and they built these other mixed-use projects around the country. They're all bankrupt. It's in receivership, but there's only so much money.
Well, my understanding is that the parent company is not bankrupt, but they set up companies to basically do this one. Each
The little
development,
separate LLCs.
yeah, and so they can let they extract the money and let that LLC go bankrupt, and the main company still walks away with the profit.
All under the guise of providing badly needed housing to those who cannot afford it. To this day, when you drive by there, it's beautiful from the outside, from a distance. But then Pearl wisely went in there and showed all the mold and the rodents and insects, and that just didn't happen. And there were entities that were aware of it. They're all going to say, oh, this. But at the end of the day, nobody has taken responsibility until poor Warren stood up and took responsibility herself. She's a courageous politician.
And she called for Abdi Warsame, the executive director of the Minneapolis Public Housing Authority, to resign, as has the AACP. Do you think that's likely to happen? I know people, and Warren made this clear, she's not interested in assigning blame just yet. She wants to help these people find housing. But something this tragic, I feel like someone has to be held accountable at some point.
Right.
And
right.
I don't know if it's Warsame or who, but that's
right.
where the finger's kind of being pointed right now, at least. Yeah.
Right. And only time will tell. It seems like every day there's more information, but there has to be an incredible investigation so this never happens again. If you remember, the irony is that this site was involved in a big federal lawsuit because the housing was so poorly, not so much built, because they were brick and they lasted a long time. They were built in their 30s, but they had to be torn down in the 70s for no maintenance. For those of us who own homes or rental property, you got to fix them up, especially in Minnesota. You have storms, you have cold, you have heat. Look at today. Today is hard on a house. The heat today, it's hard. Hard on your air conditioner. I can't even go over to Elsie's bowling alley today because the air conditioner is can't keep up with the heat.
Yeah, I'm ready for a condo. I'm tired of maintaining the house and everything.
Let me know what you find with a low HOA. That's the hang up, right?
Is it okay? Well, so that I did think the new emergency services director, Sayer, who I guess you just confirmed in June.
She's a blessing. She's great.
Yeah.
Vast experience in Haiti and Asia, over in Europe under emergencies, Africa. We're really glad and happy and fortunate that we have her.
Yeah, because this is being essentially treated like a forest fire.
Well, it's a
it's
public emergency for the 636 people that are left.
Yeah.
And then you wonder too. Pearl talks about the long-term effects it's had on people's lungs. Breathing mold is not a good thing. So it's a real problem. It's a big problem.
Well, more to come on that. I think that'll be a hot topic for a while. One thing this was a couple weeks ago, maybe in the public safety meeting. You went through a legislative directive that I guess you requested about closing a HERC. And I found that really interesting. I'm not up to date on all the issues with HERC, but maybe you could just relay some of the findings there, because they surprised me, I think, in terms of what burning the trash versus transporting the trash does, and the costs. And so could you summarize that?
So I asked for that because there's just so many stories, and depending on what advocacy group is speaking, their story they feel is the most important. But what our professional staff came back with is, there's certainly things that come out in the air when trash is burned, and there are pollutants, but they're all under what the government deems where the pollution that is above what we should be breathing comes from the trucks that transport the trash. And if we were to carry this trash to landfills, they'd have to be far away, and it would increase the pollution from those trucks. There's also a big cost to that as well. So smarter minds than mine have to put their pencil to the paper and figure this out. Right now, we do not have recycling mandates for units over 4 in the city. So a lot of these small apartment buildings, they're not recycling. That's really the key, is how do we get more recycling so we burn less trash? Another fact that came out I wasn't aware of is if we did not put trash into that burner, the county would get it from other people. This is the state mandate that the county works under. Part of what I've learned in government is there's the city, there's the county, there's the state, there's the federal.
Yeah. Well,
we're at the bottom of the list.
But eventually the HERC is closing, right?
By 2030, I think is what the county said they'd do it by, right?
So you're saying, like, if next year we took all the Minneapolis trash out, they would find other trash until it closes. And so if it is closing in 4 years, I mean, this does seem like the time to be getting a plan in place for when it does close, right?
Yeah.
I mean, is that...
It's supposed to close in 4 years, so we'll see, right? Because there is no plan, really.
Okay.
And depending on who you talk to, there's a plan here, a plan there, but there is no official plan I'm aware of. And again, it all hinges on how do we get recycling to get up here in Minneapolis. And also organic waste is part of that recycling. Something like 40% of what's burned in there is organic waste. It's garbage. It's orange peels and apple cores.
Right. One of the things I saw in that report, if I got it right, is that once you take it to the landfill, it's still polluting because it's methane gas. Whereas when you burn it, it's done. You have some.
As bad as carbon is emitting, like from coal burning or natural gas, methane is the worst. It's 7 times worse than the carbon that's in there. So there's just a lot to think about and to agree on. The state who has power over the county has to come into agreement. Those two entities, we as the city who actually pick up the trash, pick up the recycling, how does that all happen? And right now, that communication is just not there. Yeah. Unless they're doing it behind closed doors.
Well, I hope that whatever plan ends up being implemented is based on facts. I mean, the HERC situation reminds me too of the roof depot, right? I feel like it's a lot of the same people. And how is that going to work? Because from what I understand, the roof depot group kind of owns half of it, and the city is going to own half of it. Is that? Did I
Yeah,
hear that
so
right?
it's been downscaled. The roof depot really costs the taxpayers of Minneapolis a lot of money. I did a legislative direct on that. It's well over 10 million. You know, it was bought well before I took office and just got stalled. And there was the famous meeting in February of 22, because both Latricia Vita and I had to go get restraining orders against the activists that attacked us. They also attacked Emily Koski, Lene Palmisano, Andrea Jenkins. It was brutal. It was absolutely brutal. In fact, it led to many security changes now in the new chambers because the threat of violence was so clear. And they were physically threatening violence to us vocally. So it was terrible. But in the meantime, I think it was bought in 2014 is when I think they bought that to consolidate, to have less truck traffic, right? Take more pollution out of the air. But it's just an incredible waste of money. And what almost got settled back in the famous state budget of 23, but the state senator in that area, Fatah, left the state capitol on the last day and did not come back. So bonding bill was not able to happen in 23. And that was a $5 million fund to make the city whole and let that group have it. Well, now since then they realize they can't make the money work as an urban farm and this and that. And it's not in my area, so I don't pay a lot of attention. And it's just so much money that's been forced upon the taxpayers of Minneapolis that, why it's just, I don't even want to think about it, Terry.
And
It's a big mistake.
So in the event with Fateh, that was to get the
The Uber, he was mad at the governor for the Uber drivers.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
So he took his ball and went home.
So what should people take away with the HERC? Is the city going to be directing traffic, trash away from HERC, or what's the plan?
Yeah.
now?
So what my takeaway is we, as a city, our government, we have to work with the county and say, like, how do we get people to recycle more? Like, how does it work? What is happening in other cities that have high recycle rates? How do we inspire our citizens to do that? And do we do that through ordinance, through the stick and carrot? How do we do it? The county has to have this plan, and I'm sure they're working on it. I'd like to maybe see it at some point. And then the state too, because if we go the landfill route, even if it's the ash from the burner, where is that landfill going to be? We're running out of space. And to your point, landfills are toxic.
Yeah.
More toxic than burning it.
So another topic that has been causing a lot of feedback, I guess, recently is the video that the Ramsey County Sheriff Fletcher made about the problem that they're having with Somali gangs. And he made, even though he's in Ramsey County, he made a point of saying this isn't just a Ramsey County issue. I mean, obviously people have cars, they drive all over. Right. And I noticed that Councilmember Jamal Osman has since come out and said, that was an irresponsible video for Fletcher to make, and I think Ilhan Omar has also come out against it. Was that irresponsible? Is there a gang task force in Minneapolis right now? I mean, is Hennepin County kind of seeing the same thing? What's your take on this situation?
Well, I got caught off this in 4th of July 22, which were those large commercial fireworks, huge rockets that were being fired at citizens who were walking their dogs in the Mill District, Stone Arch Bridge, fired up at their balconies. Went on for hours and hours and hours. And I identified the problem, who did it, and I paid the price. So I think the sheriff made the same mistake I did. which is to not say there's a problem, but to call out who's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the state of our society. Do you speak the truth and hurt people's feelings? Do you talk quietly? You know, like, how do we handle bad behavior? How do we do that?
Yeah.
And I understand why Councilmember Osmond is upset. He's sticking up for his community. Good for him. But there's clearly a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, last night I was over at the apartment building next to the Stone Arch Bridge. I got my ears full. The police I brought, Park Police, 2nd Precinct Police, they got their ears full. It's a problem.
You had a community safety meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and what sort of things did you hear? What?
Well, when we get off record, I'll tell you. But I'm not.
Okay.
I learned my lesson. You know, I got called a racist, a bigot, xenophobic. I got called every name in the book. I was a bad person because I told the truth about what happened in 22. So I'm not gonna expose myself to that again.
Okay.
And I think what I learned from that, and what I hope Sheriff Fletcher would have learned, is we have to be very, very sensitive on how we handle these issues. Crime is such a sensitive issue, and calling out a whole race of people, a whole ethnic community, that's not the way to solve the problem.
Yeah. I do think, to defend him a little bit here, he didn't say it was all Somalis. I mean, I feel like he said there were some very active members of these gangs, and he recognizes it's not every Somali youth involved.
Right.
But the ones that are involved are very problematic. It's kind of how I interpreted what was said. So,
right.
Well, we'll see if it leads to any changes or less crime. Do you feel like here in Minneapolis, the crime situation is getting better, staying the same? Is it worse? I mean, because there's been some more shootings recently. I mean, I've written about them. It seems like the shootings that occur get very little press in the city. I mean,
Right.
it seems like there's a certain amount of acceptance that every weekend someone's going to be shot and killed.
Right. Yeah.
So.
We kind of got that Chicago mentality. It's a weekend. There's going to be shootings. I mean, last night, 2 women got shot under the Hiawatha Freeway Bridge at Lake Street.
Oh, I didn't know
Someone
that.
got killed in North Minneapolis. 5 people, most of them women, OD'd in Uptown. And the police brought them back. Police got there right away. One, I guess, really had some bad dope in her, but they saved them. So it's an ongoing problem.
Mhm.
It is, and it's fueled by drug use, combined with the lack of 911 responders. We're very, very short. I was this morning. I went to a roll call at a precinct, and whole big precincts. Those are big. There were 5 911 responders.
Mhm.
It's we're still short. If you think about how we did our public safety in May of 2020 before the murder of George Floyd, there was over 900 police officers. Now we have a little over 600, and probably about 80 of them are 1 year or less, year and a half or less on the job, so very inexperienced.
Well, and as you know, I've heard and I've interviewed Commissioner Barnett about this too, but I've heard him say this several times. It's like people talk about there being 600 plus, but at any given time, 40 are on vacation or sick leave or maternity
They get
leave.
hurt.
Yeah.
They get beat up. People beat up cops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So does that mean you think we're kind of at a even point? Is it getting worse? Is it getting better?
It's getting better, but way too slow. We're not near the ability to help our citizens be safe compared to 2020. Now, what's working, the behavioral crisis response, we're diverting calls so police can go on the more dangerous ones. These drones would have helped a lot. I think that's why we deserve to have a 75-day pilot and get the data that the pilot would have told us and see, is what's going on in other big liberal cities throughout the United States, or even Duluth or Minnetonka or St. Paul. Like, what's good, what's bad?
So the mayor recently announced a new policy. I think, I don't know, maybe it was July 2nd. Jamal Osman spoke. I think he was the only city councilor there, but there's a bunch of Native American leaders that spoke, and it's essentially what he didn't call it a crackdown on encampments, but it was more of a carrot and stick, as he described it, that they're going to be more aggressive, I guess, in issuing citations to and arrests of drug sellers and people using in public, particularly at what he called open air drug market. So
Right.
you weren't there. Is that something that you support? What do you think this is going to do for the city? Is it going to be helpful or?
Yeah, so we have to do things differently. And for the last handful of years, again, after the terrible murder of George Floyd at the hands of a police officer, we've kind of turned and looked the other way about drugs. And when you listen to the Native American elders, they have a whole different opinion of these camps, that they're bad. And that because it's been allowed to fester in the Franklin Avenue area, you know, the children aren't safe, the women aren't safe, they get solicited when they go down. And I will be watching this new approach. I think it's worth trying. Does it work? But then you get into the court system, and will the courts hold people responsible for selling drugs? Will they hold people responsible for doing drugs in public, on whether it's on the street or on a bus or a train? I have a lot of train stations in my ward on the downtown side, and I get calls from people all the time that want to take the train out to the airport. You know, they're visiting grandkids, they're going on vacation, but they've had such bad experiences that they'll take an Uber or have a friend drop them off.
Yeah.
You know, open public use of drugs is not good for society. It's not good. We're not helping the people who are addicted.
No, and I recently wrote about, I've been taking the bus downtown, and sometimes I take the D line, and yeah, I mean, there's some questionable situations there where I can see that a lot of people would be made uncomfortable by them and just decide to stop trying to take public transportation. I mean, they
Right.
say that more people are coming back to it.
And they have, and Metro Transit's done a really good job restaffing their police department. They're fully staffed. They have a big pipeline of community service officers. Young people are training to become a Metro Transit officer while they go to school to get their degree. And it's working. They also have a bright deep blue shirt where people check fares. They travel in groups of threes for their own security, and it's working. And it gives the riders hope that they're being safe.
Well, I have been checked numerous times for my
Did you
fare.
pay
So I did, yeah.
every time?
Of course, of course.
Okay.
So let's talk. We touched on this. Well, while we're on I did want to ask you, what are you going to be looking for in the next police chief? Right. I mean, that's another, kind of big issue in the city that
Right.
is forgotten because there's been several other big issues that have since come up. But, we lost the police chief. He was very popular with a lot of people. Don't know, exactly what led to his being let go or resigning, but that occurred. So now we're doing a new search. So when you give advice to the mayor, what are you looking for? What's the future there?
Yeah, so a search firm has been hired that specializes in hiring chiefs of police and top safety officials like that. And actually, just this last week, Councilmember Chavez, Palmisano, and I met with them and so we talk about, and right away, we want to continue with the public safety path we're on now, to treat our citizens with respect. And the budget's an issue. Like, how do we manage? How do we submit a budget that we're not coming up on all this overtime? And that's a difficult issue because overtime is being driven by the lack of police officers. I mean, we have to put people in squad cars. I answer 911 calls, and there are times where half of the shifts are filled with overtime.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have big events like Annunciation or the Metro Surge. We spend a lot of money on Metro Surge in order to protect the property. We didn't know if we were going to have another riot like happened after the murder of George Floyd, where Lake Street burned down. We didn't want Lake Street or Nicollet Avenue to burn down again.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a lot of overtime. So the chief has to be aware of that. Better communications with the council. Chavez brought up a good point that I totally agree with, Councilmember Chavez. And it seems like the last chief and his administration was not prepared when we had asked a question, say in a legislative directive or just quarterly reports. They weren't prepared to come and answer that. That create a lot of hard feelings with the council.
Yeah,
So-
I saw, because I watch most of the council meetings or try to, and it did seem like there's a lot of times when the chief showed up and couldn't answer their questions.
Yeah,
Or,
I'll get back to you on that.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So those are key things. And the last chief, he was really good at morale. He took morale that was on the floor and he raised it up again. And he was doing good with recruiting. We have big recruiting classes.
Mhm.
And so that's working. I've gone, since I've been elected, to every graduation ceremony. And, I want to hug them all because, who would want to be a cop, much less a Minneapolis cop? The demands we put on them and the expectations are phenomenal. And then there's the danger. I mean, let's face it, we haven't had a death since Jamal Mitchell, and I hope there's never another one while I'm alive, but the
Yeah.
danger is always there.
Yeah, well, I mean, the number of guns in our society and in the streets are, it's a plague. I mean,
Right, and they're not little 6-shooter pistols. You send away via mail to China, you get a trigger. You just unscrew a couple of things, put the old trigger out, the switch trigger, and that switch allows that gun to become a machine gun. And if you have a 30-round magazine, you can squeeze the trigger, and in 1.6 seconds, 30 bullets come out. It's crazy.
Well, along those lines, we have Commissioner Barnett is in limbo, and I think that the effort to start a search for his replacement didn't pass. So now it's just kind of sitting there. What do you expect is going to happen there? Is his time just going to run out in office and then a new search will start, or will something happen before then? Or
Yeah, when I look at my crystal ball, it's still pretty cloudy.
okay,
But I do feel pretty confident that no one's going to change their vote,
yeah,
which I just don't see a path. And it goes back, there's incredible animosity. I mean, you can touch it sometimes between the one wing of the council and the mayor. That wing doesn't feel like the citizens were right in establishing this executive authority, this sometimes known as the strong mayor
right,
system,
yeah,
like they have in 90% of the cities our size. And this is a good example of they see a chance to get even with the mayor, but really what they're doing is making us weaker on that whole public safety front. Barnett did a great job. He's a smart man.
Do you think they'll, despite who is in the chairs, do you think they'll stick with the current system where they have a community safety office overseeing I think it's 5 different departments?
Right.
Does that structure work? Do you think that's going to continue?
Yeah, so we have a lot of conversations both amongst the more moderate wing that I belong to, fiscally conservative wing, and the progressives one, and you see other cities have gone to this model. I wish I had the time to travel and talk to people there. Is it working there or is it not working there? I mean, it looks good on paper on a flow chart, but is it really working here in Minneapolis? This is the question I'd have. We have a great fire department, police department. I'm not worried about that. Our 911 operator, 311 emergency management. The neighborhood safety, we put a lot of money into that on these non-violent, non-armed, or violence interrupted, non-armed public safety. How's that working? It just seems so hard to get real data.
Data.
We have data on the police and their actions. We have data on the fire department on, but that is such a new form of policing. How do we know if that is working?
I mean, I do wonder about that. Every time there's a shooting, it's like, okay, we're spending all this money on violence interrupters and these different paths of, are they working? Are we having less shootings because we're putting these people out in the street? Are less crimes occurring? And it's so hard to say, right? I mean, it seems like in a lot of crime categories, Minneapolis is bucking national trends. We'll see how this heat and the rest of the summer play out. But I don't think those are probably going anywhere. People, regardless of data, people want to see them, right? So
right. Again. I voted against the violent interrupters first couple of years the contracts came. I got convinced this is the way to go, and there's some Somali mothers and some older Somali men who are very helpful down on the riverfront. Talking to the youth, and I've seen it work. It's just such a big program. It's growing so big. I would love to have more data on its effectiveness.
Yeah.
Because, so the shooting last night on the Hiawatha Bridge, I know there's a group that works on Lake Street. Do they know what happened there? Were they involved? Could they have stopped it? We forget about that prior to the Annunciation shooting, there was about 8-9 people got shot up outside of Crystal Ray High School.
Yeah, yeah.
And, that was a known encampment, known drug dealers. What the violence interrupter group in that area, what do they know? Or is it unfair that we would expose them to that violent situation with the guns?
Yeah, I feel like it is. I mean, if I'm hired to just walk around and kind of keep an eye on things, I'm not going to, wade into an area where I know people are armed. I mean, that doesn't seem fair to ask them to do that for $20 an hour.
There's a reason police wear bulletproof vests.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Well, let's kind of head towards the end here by talking about the budget a little bit. We started off, and what is it going to look like? Have you made your priorities clear to the mayor about what you want to see in there, and what are those priorities, and what are some of the things that you think might have to be curtailed? I mean, obviously there's a lot of people looking at the police budget. That was part of the reason they didn't want to go with the drones, or at least said they didn't.
Well, the drones were free.
Well, but they wouldn't stay free, right? I mean, after
if the data showed they can be used.
Yeah, I mean, there's a contract there, would have been. But what are your priorities with the budget? What do you think is up for negotiation?
Yeah. So I did not ask for any spending. I've never been big on social programs. I think that should be left to the county and to the state and the federal government. So when I met with the mayor and some of his executive committee, I'm afraid that we're in a down cycle. We have to tell the truth. I'm afraid we're not recognizing how bad it really is. And it's nobody's fault. Economic cycle goes up and down, and there was a time there. You have to remember, I worked for the Minneapolis Convention and Visitors Association. Minneapolis was magic in the 2018 Super Bowl, 2018. The 2019 NCAA, we had the men's, we had the women's. Everything was working. Hotels were full, restaurants were full. There were 36,000 people employed just in the hospitality industry. Mm-hmm. Crime was low, was all working. And then we had that double whammy of the COVID and the riots, and it's just a different city now. So just as we added staff and programming when the money was there, well, the money's not there anymore. So I'll have my second budget meeting out in the community this next week. I had one already, and I worked with our assessor. I have a document. I'll show it to you. It shows the buildings in downtown, the value, the tax dollars we got out of them peaked in 2022 because of 21 values,
Mm-hmm.
and or excuse me, 21 because of 20 values. But since that time, we've lost $54 million in just the downtown. So that's why your taxes have gone up, mine, and renters' rents keep going up because the property tax has to be paid. So it's a mess, right? And until we do get downtown going again, so I have asked for some money to green up Nickel Mall. You know, the goal is to take the buses off that, make that this beautiful retail street, arts, entertainment, get vendors. You know, the people who are on Carmel Mall, on Lake Street, on West Broadway, on Central Avenue, we should make sure they have low cost places to sell their goods and services on Nicollet Mall. Make it just the coolest street in the Upper Midwest. Just use our brains and figure that out. And that needs a little seed money. But it's going to be, I predict, maybe it'll help me back at the end of the budget thing, there's going to be a lot of hard feelings, a lot of screaming and yelling, and
Well, so
gnashing of teeth.
So, what's negotiable? I mean, if things have to get cut, what do you think is going to be looked at the most? I mean, would you be willing to cut the police budget, right? It's one of the biggest things in there. Or do we need to be looking at other departments? I mean, because what I understand, like the fire department is also short-staffed, I've heard.
Yep,
I mean,
yep. And they have really bad response times. They're below the national average.
so, you know, at some point
I
feels
should say above the national average.
there has to be an emphasis on what are the basic services that we're going to support without cuts, possibly, and then these are some of the other things that maybe start to get cut, or you know, what are those things that you think need to be looked at? You know, where
Right.
is spending maybe grown more than
Right.
it should have?
Right. So this is all going to play out. You're going to have me back in
Okay.
September, October.
All right, happy
So
to.
again, it's all keyed off. I have my say with the mayor. You know, he shared a few things with me, and again, I am giving him and his staff cover by going out into the community and explaining how bad things are. And he starts off on August 12th, less than a month, by giving his proposed budget with a dollar figure attached. And I'll analyze, and it's a big document, I'll analyze what each department, and then I'll listen to each department as they come, and then I'll ascertain what can be cut.
Yeah.
Because it's just if we just did business as usual with the programs we have now, it would be a 13% increase, and that's just unacceptable.
Well, so my perspective a little bit on it is that no department, and I do like that all of these departments come to the city council and give a presentation. Yeah, I like that. And I'm sure you learn a lot. But I mean, no one's going to come before you and say, you know what, we probably don't need this or that, right? So, and every department is important. They all have people doing jobs that are critical. So, I do kind of like that stance of just a flat saying to every department, 10%. You got to cut 10% or 7%. Right. You know, you figure out how to do it. Maybe it's people, maybe it's programs, but then, yeah. So I mean, is that ever something that gets discussed? Is that ever?
I asked
possible?
for that. I asked for 5% and a 2% cut by everybody, last budget and the one before. So I've asked for that, and then the pushback on me is, well, 2% of the public works budget is different than 2% from the health department. And to me, at the end of the day, we got to cut the budget. Every person in Minneapolis has had the economic crisis impact them. Every household has had to tighten the budget, whether it's going to the grocery store, driving a used car, maybe you're not getting that repair done at your house, you make do. That's just the economic reality, and we can't run away from it. We have to have a city that's affordable, and when you keep having 7-8% raises, and again, it's at 13 now. We know our staff is all we take good care of them, right? They've all getting raises. The health insurance has gone up. Now we have this paid family leave time, which is really cut back a lot on both our fire and police departments. So it's going to be tough. There's just no way around it. But as an elected official, I have the responsibility to not allow these continual hikes in property taxes, which again, every low income really hurts the low income and the fixed income. I hear that from my constituents, and it's a hard thing to hear.
Well, so if this budget is like the last couple of years, there will be some controversy at the end and some amendments and maybe some vetoes and veto overrides. But to get it passed and to get a lot of this stuff done, the council needs to work together, and it's no secret that there's been some, conflict, let's call it. And so the city has hired, this outside firm from Wisconsin, I guess, to help facilitate conversation between members and do some executive coaching. Has that been useful? Do you think it's going to be successful? Because, I'm of the opinion that if it helps, I'm all for it. Because we want to see things get done for the city, move the city forward. So what's your take on it? Is it going to help?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask me about this, but I'm not going to duck it either. So it's a really good idea because we are not serving our taxpayers well, or our visitors or the business community. It's just not working. And the biggest reason it's not working is the conflicts we have, and this is my opinion. I think I'm right. I got gray hair and wrinkles. I think I got this figured out. We have all these different levels of life experience, okay? So look at myself. I've had a 35-year career with the Convention and Visitors Bureau. I did budgets. I did revenue forecasts. I had a client list where, you got to listen to the client and work with them, keep in touch, good communications. I started working when I was 13 years old, washing dishes, and worked my way up in that hospitality industry.
In one of the restaurants around here?
Oh, yeah.
Are any of those restaurants still open that you worked at?
The one I started in is closed, and the hotel where I really got a lot of experience was the Sheraton Ritz, because that was the luxury hotel of its day.
Okay.
Before there was a Marriott or a Hyatt, there was the Sheraton Ritz. And so I have that work experience. I also been married 38 years, father. I have a lot of life experience in managing money, managing relationships. And then not everybody has that on the council.
Yeah.
Good at getting elected, but in their youth, they just don't have the experience that some of us, Latricia Vita, a lot of experience, professional, a healthcare professional, a lot of experience. Pearl Warren, working in the housing industry.
Yeah.
So it started out, and if you go back to January 6th of this year, and we had our first session, and you could see everybody was there on time. We were working.
When was the inauguration? When did you guys?
January 5th.
Oh, so the next day.
The next day. So, and January 5th was the big vote where all of the, I call them leadership positions. This is a part of it too. There's 18 leadership positions, so chair, vice chair, and then the current president created a minority leader, a majority leader. So there's 18 of them.
Yeah.
The people that voted, so he used it to get his votes, my opinion, right? I think I'm right.
Yeah.
And the people who voted for them, they got 15 of the 18 positions. 2 council members, Pearl Warren and Latricia Vita, got 0. So that whole part of North Minneapolis, 2 wards, their representatives are not allowed to have any leadership skills. No input on that. And so that was a shock. We went in this, try to heal that wound.
I remember too, because Schaefer was not put on
the budget. She wanted to be on the budget, and they wouldn't let her do that. So we had to have a separate vote on that. Looking back, we should have probably called some separate votes on these other things. But part of this is like, how is this going to work? What is a majority leader? What is a minority leader? In fact, these are partisan positions and blah, blah. Well, first thing Wamsley does, I'm so happy to represent the DSA as a majority leader.
Yeah.
So she completely did the opposite of what Elliot Payne promised. And then you go into the day, we have goodwill, good intent, we're all going to work it out. First day is kind of like Kitty Garden, where you have the name tags, do little games, and we're getting there. The next day we start at 9. Again, everybody's on time. We're drinking coffee, happy. 10 to 10, the mayor's phone rings. Renee Good's killed. He goes out in the hallway, comes back, grabs Elliot Payne. They go out, and they say, we got to go. We've had someone shot. The federal agents have killed. They didn't say killed, shot someone. Later we found out she was killed. So that was all canceled. And then when we picked it up again a couple weeks ago, we had 2 days scheduled, and a couple of the council members didn't show up. Now there's 3 that didn't show. One had a pretty good excuse. They were new, and they had already bought plane tickets to go visit. But the other 2 were local, and they kind of voted with their feet on this idea of us coming together and serving the taxpayers of the city, not our own ideologies.
Yeah.
So we have another session coming up in a couple weeks. I'll tell you how that goes.
Okay.
And I'm there.
Did you, even though a couple of people didn't show up, did this session still happen?
Oh yeah. Oh sure. It was great. Yeah. And we agreed that we wanted to have some norms, and we agreed that we would pick up the phone and communicate instead of using the microphone. To your earlier point, where we just get told about these ordinances and legislative directions.
Well, I do find it's funny because in the council meetings, there's a lot of back and forth of like, hey, we agreed to do this and you didn't do it. And that's kind of how I learned, like, oh, I guess they agreed they're supposed to pick up the phone and call each other, you know?
And not broadcast out the difference. And we agreed that we wouldn't disparage each other or the administration publicly or at press conferences.
Yeah.
And that's...
Did those stop? Because I did notice they were having press conferences after city council meetings when they were...
It's slowed a little, and it's more professional rather than vindictive. It's not mean-spirited, blaming. I'm the city council, and I do everything right, and it's the administration's fault. I mean, it's very childish.
Yeah.
So the hope is there, right? I mean, you can't give up. You got to keep trying. We're working for the city people, the city business community. We're a $2 billion a year enterprise, and again, I'll go back to the experience that people have. Some have a lot of life experience in different ways. Some don't have that much.
Yeah.
And that's where the conflict comes in, because everybody thinks they're right.
Well, I hope that it leads to some more productive discussions, because it definitely seems like grievances still get aired during the actual meeting. Well, I think that's all the questions that I had today. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you think you wanted to make sure we talked about?
Well, I just think I want your audience to know that there are those of us on the council who are generally trying to compromise, have good manners, and move the city forward. And hopefully that'll rub off on others, because we have to do that. This is a real turning point in the city's history. And we can overcome this by working together, working with the mayor, the administration. We can get back on track. But we fell off our track in 20, and we got to get back.
Okay. Well, great. Thanks again for joining me today. And I'll certainly have you back in the fall after the budget's finalized.
Yeah,
So.
I might have some bandages on my face or get bruised up a little, but
I hope it goes easier this year than it has in the past, but it sounds like that's probably, when you start talking cuts, it's probably not.
I have to give a call out to Councilmember Chuck Ty. She did a kind of a compromise at a last minute. As budget chair, I mean, she saw the mayor was going to veto the budget, which has thrown us into disarray. We had to start shutting things down. And she saw the wisdom of compromise. So the mayor gave up a little, she gave up a little. She was the seventh vote. And, she showed great leadership last budget.
Okay. Well, good. Hopefully she's back and we see that again.
Right.
So,
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Bye.